Good morning, everyone, as well as good afternoon or good evening to everyone based on your location. We hope you're doing well and are staying safe. On behalf of AIOUG, I would like to welcome you back to yet another day of OG Yatra 2020, an online webinar series. OG Yatra is one of the largest users group webinar series covering 14 days running from the 1st to the 16th of July. We still have a lot of sessions coming up with 60 plus Oracle Aces, Java champions, Groundbreaker ambassadors, and many other technologists from all over the world joining us in this festival of learning. Through the 14 days, we will have 8 sessions daily, beginning at 10 a.m., which go right up to 10 p.m. What you see now are the speakers for today. And we have some really exciting sessions lined up for today. Please remember, each day is a separate track for a different technology. So kindly refer our website for the detailed agenda and accurate timings. In fact, you can find a day-wise agenda on our homepage itself. I would like to take a minute of your time and introduce you to AIOUG, that is, All India Oracle Users Group. We are one of the largest Oracle Users Group, and Sangam is our yearly annual conference that's held either in Hyderabad or Bengaluru. The Groundbreaker Tour, or OG Yatra, is a tour where we bring all the speakers to you, to your city. Please note, the registrations for upcoming sessions are still open, and please feel free to reach out to us via our Telegram support channel for any assistance. We also have one more request. Since we can't be taking selfies in this webinar, we would like to request you to take a snapshot of this and use the handles OG Yatra and AIOUG to show your support for India's Oracle Users Group, and more importantly, tag our speakers to thank them for their valuable time. So today, we begin our day with some PL SQL development with Visual Studio and Oracle Database with Christian Shea. Christian is a product manager with Database Technologies Group at Oracle. As a .NET and an Oracle Database on Windows evangelist, he speaks at user groups, at Microsoft events, and Oracle events worldwide. With that, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Christian and hand over the session to him.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and share my screen for you. Okay, and welcome everyone. I guess that's good morning to you and good evening to you both. I'm sure there's people from all around the globe watching this, and I really appreciate you coming to this session, and hopefully you'll learn a few things that might help you in your day-to-day work with SQL and PL SQL development. So I'm a product manager in the group responsible for the database and also for development tools and .NET. And so I work very closely with Microsoft on bringing development tools for SQL and PL SQL to you, the developer, so that you can have a good experience. So today we're going to talk about two of Microsoft's products, Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code I will start with, and when I finish there, we'll go to Visual Studio. And I'd just like to invite you to post any questions you may have during the session in the question box, and at the end I will try to answer as many as I can. But obviously I won't be able to answer you immediately. We'll do it at the end of the session. So with that, let's get started. So I'm sure many of you are aware of Visual Studio Code. It's free, so why not? Why wouldn't you be aware of it? And it's very, very popular. So in fact, it's the most popular development environment today, and is used by many, many developers around the world. So why is it popular? Well, it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's free. It's cross-platform, so it works on Linux, Windows, and Mac. It has a lot of great features, debugging support, Git. It has wonderful documentation, and it's very extensible. They support a lot of languages, and whenever there's a gap, whenever there's something they don't support, individual developers and companies come in to fill the gap with extensions. So that brings us to Oracle. So what about Oracle developers? What about SQL and PL/SQL? What happens with Visual Studio Code there? Well, if you take a look at the Visual Studio Code marketplace, which is built right into Visual Studio Code, you'll see that, yes, Oracle has an extension. It's called Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code. And so this does what you probably would expect. It lets you develop SQL and PL/SQL and explore your database and execute scripts and interesting things that I'll give you a nice demo of that so you can see for yourself what you can do. But you can also, even while we're talking here today, you can also go to Visual Studio Code and install it yourself and try it out while I'm showing you. It's because it's free and it's easy. So as I mentioned, it's our extension, of course, is also free. It's available from the Visual Studio Code marketplace, and it's cross-platform. I'll show you some of the features today, and there's many more coming in the coming months. But so, of course, you can do your development. If you just want to develop your SQL and PL/SQL, that's fine. But if you're doing it side by side with Python, C# or Java or anything else, that's very typical. People kind of spend a lot of time in VS Code these days. So you can also, we have a tree control, which you may see in the screen there in the image on the left, that lets you explore your database. And you can obviously edit and execute SQL and PL/SQL. You can get your results in various formats. And we have code snippets, and we have syntax highlighting to make it easier, autocomplete, IntelliSense, SQL history and bookmarks, which are coming soon, actually. That's a little premature there. And Linux, Mac OS, and Windows support. So if you look at the bottom there, you can see a link that you can go to read more about it. But the Visual Studio marketplace is built right into Visual Studio Code. So I'll show you this in just a couple seconds here. So some of the things that you're going to see me do in this demo, you're going to see me explore the schema, view table data. I'm going to run a package, or I'll run a function, I guess, maybe a package procedure as well. And I'll execute and save PL/SQL into the database or into a file. So if you're doing this, the one thing that's a little unusual is we base this on the .NET Core runtime. So if you are using Linux or Mac, that might be a little surprising, but it's actually pretty easy. It's very small. And if you don't have it, when you install it, it will prompt you, we will prompt you, and you can install it. The only thing is the current version that's out there right now is a little bit old because we're just about to have another release. And so the version it depends on is 2.1 or 2.2. So sometimes people are already on 3.1 of the .NET Core runtime, and they don't realize that they also need to have this one. But it should be pretty obvious if you follow the link that you will be prompted. Okay, so enough of the descriptions. Let's actually see this in action. Okay. All right, so I have Visual Studio Code here. And let me close this to avoid spoiling your surprise. And if you take a look at the extensions list, you can actually go right into the Visual Studio Marketplace right here, and you can type Oracle. And you'll see a bunch of different extensions here that are for Oracle. And the one that we developed is right here, Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code. So you can install it from here. I've already installed it, so I don't need to do it. It only takes about 30 seconds to install. And I think a few things I'll point out here is that'll be very useful when you're getting started is the QuickStart. So I definitely recommend that you go to the QuickStart, because there's always some things that everybody wants to do the first time that they try to use this extension. So there's a few gotchas, and we've covered it here, like how to connect, if you're using a proxy user, how to edit PL/SQL, all the things that I'm going to do here, we have listed here. Another thing that, another link that's pretty important to be aware of is our help forum. So if you want to use this extension and you get stuck or you have questions, you can go here to our help forum and post a question, and most likely I'll be the one who answers it. Okay, so it's very easy to install. You click install. I've already done it. And when you do, you'll see that this database icon will show up here. Let me close this. You'll see that this database icon shows up here, and it shows the Oracle Explorer. I'm going to try zooming in here. Excuse me a second. That's for the benefit of anybody on a small screen. And but in any case, this is going to be the tree control, and it's also an easy way to start, because you can just click the plus button to connect, and etc. All right. So first thing we're going to do is connect. So I happen to have a always free instance in the cloud, but you may have an on-premise database. It doesn't matter. So let me choose my always free instance, and we'll talk about how we'll talk a little bit more about connecting to Oracle's cloud and the free instance that is available. We'll talk about that when I talk about Visual Studio. But in any case, I'm just providing the wallet file and the TNS location for the aliases here. And then I'm going to connect as the HR user, save the password, and see, I'm going to create the connection. Hopefully it will work. Okay, and then open it. All right, so I'm now connected to my database. And all right, so let's look at some of the things that you can do here. So you can obviously look at the different schema objects that you have. I have some tables, I have some functions, I have a package, and you can kind of key off these things. So let's look at a few things here. So we can look at the employees table, which you may have seen a few times if you use Oracle. And I can examine the data in that table. And if I want to, I can save the data as a JSON file, and it will open it up in an editor, and you can use this in your app if you want. It's just for your convenience. Let's see. Yeah, so that's table data. So let's move on now to executing SQL. So I'll come back to a few of these here in a minute. So actually, you know what? Before we leave the Explorer here, I want to show you one other thing, which is how what you can do with stored procedures and functions from Oracle Explorer. So I have a function called names for. I actually got this from Stephen Feuerstein's website, the PL/SQL Guru. And so this is actually some PL/SQL that I just pulled out of the database. And if I want to, I can save this to some PL SQL file. Right now, it's created a temporary file for me to edit. And you can see what it is here. Now, if I want, I can run this. And provide the value emp. And then it returns a ref cursor. I can fetch the data out of that function. So let's modify this. I think I have the snippet here already. I don't have to mess it up. Okay, let me, oops. Okay, I think that's pretty enough. Let's, so now what we can do is we can right click and say save to database. And this will basically execute this and put it back into the database, hopefully. All right, and let's go ahead and run this again. I hope it will work. Run. And now we can try the depth that we just added. See if that'll work. Yes, it does. So it returns the department values. Okay, so this is using PL SQL that we dragged out of the database. But what about, ad hoc SQL or scripts you want to run? So that's easy to do. So there's a command palette key called F1. And you can say develop new SQL or PL SQL. Sorry, F1. Try that again. Okay, I clicked the wrong one. Okay, choose my connection from the list. All right, so now we have a file here. You can see that it is associated down here in the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but it's associated with our extension. That's why it says Oracle SQL PL SQL, and it's associated with my connection, always free high. Okay. All right, so now we can just start typing SQL. So I can type select. Okay. Oh, this reminds me, we do have snippets. So if you type Oracle and you can't remember how to do a select statement, you can say select rows. That's kind of, if you know anything about SQL, that's probably overkill. But we do have code snippets that you can get to by typing Oracle. There's a few in there that I forget myself, especially with regard to PDBs and things like that. All right, so, but getting back to the select statement. So select, let's say last name. So you can see already, I am already using autocomplete, last name from, and then I can either type the name of the table, employees. Oops. And I could select it from this list. Or if I want to give it a hint of the schema I'm in, I could type HR dot. And when you do that, it gives you a much more concise list of the objects. So it's just your choice. One's called autocomplete, the other's called IntelliSense. So anyway, that's that, and we can execute it and get the results. And just like before, you can save it to a file if you'd like. Now let's do another one. Let's say select. I happen to have a package down here. If you look, Oramag is prime. It's a prime number routine. It takes in a number and tells you one if it's prime, 0 if it's not. So let's do that here in the select statement. Let's say select Oramag is, and then you can see it popped up here, is prime 13. All right, I can execute that. You can see it is a prime number, came back as a 1. And one last one, how about select star from departments? Okay, now this time if I want, I can run all the statements at once by saying execute all. Let's do that, we'll run all of them. Okay, so the first statement, select last name from employees. Second one, select or a mag is prime from dual. And the last one, select star from departments. I did want to say that, and I'll get to this in a minute, but we are about to have another release. And when we do, we really are enhancing the ease of use and the display, the quality of the display and everything. So some of the things that you see here, if you're watching this on a video in a few months, won't quite look the same as what as what I'm showing right now, because we're enhancing everything. So as time goes on, this is going to look better and better, and the video, if you're watching it years from now, will look quite a bit different. So just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. Okay, so that's a basic overview of what we have. So yeah, so of course, you know, you can save this to a file and do whatever you want with it. As I mentioned, you can pull definitions of files out of here. Like I can say edit package body, and then I can save this. You know, my copy. And then, you know, now I have a copy of what was in the database. So anyway, this is what we have today. And let me go back to the slides to talk about what's coming very soon. I see, I wasn't going to do this, but I took a peek and I see that someone asked, actually it's Dimitri. I see that I'm being asked if you can edit the data in the table in Visual Studio Code. And the answer is no, you cannot. It's basically a display. It's like SQL Plus. It's like displaying the data only. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's see. So what's coming up? So the next release, I like to call it the kitchen sink release, because we had a lot of time that passed between the last release and this release, and we did a ton of features. A lot of them you might just expect that we already had it, but the bottom line is when this release 19.3.3 comes out, we're getting very close to not feature complete, but close. So there's some very important features in this release. So keep an eye on the marketplace for 19.3.3. So and what we did was we went through the excuse me a second here, I lost it. We went through the online forums. We have a very good community of people who have been giving us lots of great feedback up on our forum. And we took a very close look at all of the things that people were telling us, and we tried to fix as many of them as we could. And also, we just generally tried to make the tool as friendly as possible. So I think I'm very impressed with what the engineering team here at Oracle has come up with in 19.3.3. And I strongly recommend that you try it out as soon as you can, as soon as it's available. So some of the features that will be coming include the other users node in Oracle Explorer. So if you're familiar with SQL Developer, which is another great tool that's free, other users allows people who were granted simply rights on another schema and they don't have much rights of their own on their own schema. It lets them look and use the other schemas that they have access to. So if I'm HR, if I'm the HR user and my DBA pretty much doesn't give me any rights on HR, but I have a lot of rights on Scott, I can use the other users node to go into Scott and do my work there. And then the other thing we did was we added SQL Plus script support, which is probably what you might expect would already be there, but it isn't. So a lot of the SQL Plus commands are now going to be supported. And basically, it's going to have full-fledged auto completion for SQL Plus commands. It's going to be pretty cool. So I've actually used it extensively already, and it's very powerful. And then you may have mentioned earlier, because I accidentally left this bullet on one of the slides, but SQL bookmarks and SQL history. So it just makes it convenient to keep track of the SQL you've already executed, and also to save your favorite SQL or your PL SQL or scripts. So if you run them a lot, you can just click on them, and it's like a browser bookmark. It'll just bring the SQL right into your screen. Tons of bug fixes. Unfortunately, there's always bugs, and then lots of ease of use enhancements. So if you run into problems with the current release, I have a feeling those problems are probably fixed in 19.3.3. So I hope you'll give it a shot when it comes out. And I can't say precisely when it's going to come out because we keep thinking it's just about here, but it is just about here. So hopefully you can give it a try. All right. So I provided a bit.ly link to the QuickStart also because it's so important, but you can always find it in the Visual Studio Marketplace. You can always find the QuickStart link. And just make sure you read through the QuickStart because pretty much any question or problem you're going to have has been asked already. And it's probably there in the QuickStart. If not, check out the help forums. Okay. Let's move on now to Visual Studio. So we've been talking about the cross-platform Visual Studio Code, but there's a brother or sister to Visual Studio Code that's been around for a long time. I'm dating myself, but I was even using Visual Studio in the very early 90s. So it's been around for a long time. And it's been very, very popular. Very popular, and it's actually a really great development environment. The only thing is it's Windows only. So if you happen to be on Linux, you probably aren't going to, you're not going to be using this. But very early on, Oracle provided some features in the form of an extension for Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio, and I think it's important enough that that if you happen to be using Windows in any of your environments, that you should be aware of this because it really can help you with your database and management and SQL and PL SQL. So here are some of the features that we've added to this. And I think the other thing to mention is that while the features are not identical, there's definitely a lot of crossover between the two products. They're definitely not identical because the environment is very, very different. But as you can probably see, we're bringing features across from Visual Studio over to Visual Studio Code. So a few of the things that you see here today are not yet available in Visual Studio Code. For example, PL SQL editing and PL SQL debugging, which I'm going to show you. But those are probably coming in the near term to the Visual Studio Code. So some of the features that we have are we're very tightly integrated with Oracle Autonomous Database. So this is Oracle's cloud, and as you saw with Visual Studio Code, I was using my always free instance, and in Visual Studio you can actually manage your always free instance. You can't really manage it right now in Visual Studio Code, but that feature is probably coming. But I will show you very briefly how you can do that. And then lifecycle management, that's basically managing ADB. And then we actually have integration with OKE, which is Oracle's Kubernetes service. So you can deploy applications to Kubernetes directly from here. And we have a lot of designers for working with schema objects. And you can edit and debug PL SQL. You can generate scripts and edit them and run them. We have schema comparison tools and source control integration. So that, I think there's other features, but these are the big ones. And as you can see, some of those features are not in Visual Studio Code's extension yet, but they're probably coming. So without further ado, let's talk about just some of the background here, and then we'll go into a demo. So this is a free extension. Again, it's also on the Visual Studio Marketplace, and it supports Visual Studio 2019, 2017, and we actually have older versions that work with 2015, 2013. Some of the older versions of Visual Studio, the tools that you would have to get that would work with that, they do not have the newer features. But we have added all the features you're going to see today. We've added it to 2019 and to 2017. And then, so in any case, we integrate with the Server Explorer tree control, and we support Visual Studio features such as Table Adapter Configuration Wizard and Entity Designer. So these are .NET development specific features that help .NET developers automatically generate code. And then there's Oracle specific features such as Oracle Designers, PL SQL editing and debugging, and offline project with source control. Some of the ones I mentioned earlier. So rather than talk too much, let me move to a demo for you. I'll go ahead and close this. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is Visual Studio 2019. And so if you want to install Oracle Developer Tools, you can just go to Manage Extensions and search on Oracle. There's quite a bit of stuff in here, but if you scroll down and look for something red for our logo, you'll see that you can get the link for the download here. And so this is a fast down install, and once you install it, you'll see that there's a few things in your Server Explorer over here. So this is where developers interact with external sources. So the first thing you'll notice is we've got an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure node here, and we have data connections. So this is the connection to your cloud resources if you're using them. And whether you're using them or not, these are the connections to your databases. On-premise, which you're probably using, and any cloud databases you may have. So let me very briefly show you a few things about the cloud infrastructure node. So first thing is, if you want, you can sign up for Oracle Cloud for right here, and it'll open up a web page that will basically let you start for free with a free instance of the always free cloud service. So you don't have to pay anything. You can have a database instance to play with. So give that a shot. And then you can, once you've signed up and you've got set up, you can add your cloud account here. So this step is a little weird, but basically, in order to connect to the cloud, you need to have some information about your connectivity. You can see all these details in this screen. And you also need a key file. So this stuff, it's a little bit of a pain to kind of gather all this information yourself. So we have a link here that will tell you how to set this all up yourself in the form of a configuration file. It'll automatically, I'll just click on the link real quick, but basically it will automatically do all this stuff for you. So all you have to do is run this tool that you can download, and you'll automatically have the configuration file I'm about to load. So I'm going to load one of those configuration files, and you can see it populates my connection information to my cloud service. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to choose my compartment. And you can see that I am now connected to the cloud. That was very easy. You know, I didn't have to memorize any passwords or anything. I just had to open up a configuration file that points to my key file. And then you can see that I already have an always free instance here. It's not red, which means it's running. The little green star means it's always free. And so, you know, if I wanted to, I could easily create an always free instance here. This is the dialog to create a new instance. You just check off always free. But I've already created it, and you can see that you can manage it here. You can create, you can clone you can make a clone of it. You can start it. You can stop it. Let me do that again. Terminate it. You can change the password. You can upgrade to a paid instance. And if you had a paid instance, you'd also be able to scale it up and down to make it bigger, faster, have more resources, etc. So the most important, once you get a free instance, the most important menu item here is create data connection, because this is really cool. What this does is it goes out to the cloud and it gets your tnsnames.aura, your SQL.aura, your wallet file. It gets all that stuff for you, and it just puts it right there and connects to the database. You basically, all you have to do is give the username and password to the database. So let's do that. So it's going to download the wallet file here. And I think I've done this already, so the files are there, but I'll just say replace in the interest of doing a real demo. And now you can see that the wallet's here and the connect aliases are here. So I can look at my connection aliases. I can choose that, and it has my wallet already set up. So I have a blog out there stepping you step by step how to set all this up. So if you search for my name under Medium, I blog under Medium, you can find my post there. I posted it to the Oracle Groundbreakers collection of blogs. In any case, so let's go ahead and connect here. Password. Okay, let's test it, I guess. Okay, successful. And now we'll connect. All right. And you could obviously connect to any on-premise database you might have yourself. You could do it manually. So if you have an on-premise database, you know, just make sure that the data source is using our data provider. But you know, I happen to also have an XC local Express Edition database instance local here. So I could connect to that as well, but I'm not going to it till a little bit later. Well, you know what? I'm going to use this when I show you debugging, because the cloud database does not support debugging. So let me actually go ahead and connect to my local database as well. Okay, so now I got a local database and a cloud database. All right. So what are some of the things that you can do here? So especially when it comes to SQL and PL/SQL developers. So, all right. So as you saw here, you can open up table data and view it. Now, Dimitri was asking, you know, can you edit the data in Visual Studio Code? You cannot, but here in Visual Studio, because of these, is actually a widget, not a HTML rendering. You can actually change values here and save it to the database. And then what's interesting is, I showed you that is prime routine earlier. When I ran it in Visual Studio Code, you can look at it here. Let's look at the package that determines, it has an associative array of values and determines if each of the values is a prime number, and it has this set. This is prime routine. So anyway, what are some of the things you can do with SQL from here? So so you can pick an object, and you can say generate create script, and it will save it to a file. You can also save it to a database project if you have a database project. And you can also edit it in place. So if I double click on package body, like you saw, this is actually being edited in the database. So I can, I can add a comment. Let's say, hello, Yatra. And then I can say compile, and it'll get saved to the database. And the other thing I can do is I'm going to need to do it a little bit later. I'm going to do some PL SQL debugging. So I need to compile these with debug information. So compile with debug. You can see that the icon changed. And well, since I'm in here, let me just show you that. So let's go ahead and first run the is prime routine. You give it 13 as the value, and see if that's a prime number. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, what if we had a bug and we want to let me go into the code again. We want to step into here, so I can say step into. Okay. Let me check something here. Tools, options. I want to make sure it's set up right. Oracle Developer Tools, PL SQL debugging. Okay. Oh, I see. The problem is that I'm trying to show you PL SQL debugging from my cloud instance, which even though you can compile for debug, you still can't debug that. So let me go back to my local instance. Here it is. Sorry about that. Open that up. Now let's try stepping into it. Okay, so now you can see that I am stepping into this by pressing F10. You can see I'm stepping through the code. I can add a watch. See what the values are. I can change the values. The power of Visual Studio's debugger is very powerful. But if you have experience using Visual Studio, this is old hat too. You've done it many times. So I'm going to hit F5 to finish, and you can see the results. I also have a project here. And this is some .NET code that is calling that stored procedure. So let me do this, do this. So this is some .NET code that's using our data provider, and it's making a connection to my local pluggable database. And then it's calling that a prime number routine, that the determined primes that takes an array. It's setting the array 1 to 10, right? 1 to 10, and it's executing it. So now what I'm going to show you is something that's very powerful if you happen to be doing .NET coding. which is I'm going to step back and forth between PL/SQL and C#. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a breakpoint here on the execute, and I'm also going to set a breakpoint inside the PL/SQL on the routine, and hopefully it will fire. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so now I've got a breakpoint here, and I'm going to hit F10, and hopefully it will pop out in the PL/SQL. And it didn't. So what did I do wrong? Well, there's quite a few steps you have to do to get this to work, and I forgot one. So you have to turn on debugging. All right, so now you can see that debugging is turned on, and I can try again. Okay, here we go, F10 to step. There we are. Now I'm inside the PL/SQL with live values. So you can look down here at the watch window, and you can see the input array is taking in 10, 1 through 10. And then as I step through the code here, so I've gone 3 or 4 times now. Let's take a look at the output. You can see the array is growing, and it's putting values in here. It's going to go through it 10 times. And it will come out on the other side. So here we are back in .NET, and I can take a look at the values, output values. You can see this is the values that came back from the PL/SQL. You can see it here inside of the debugger. Okay, so kind of did this a little inside out. I really wanted to make sure that you saw PL/SQL debugging, but that's probably the most complex thing that I'm going to show you tonight, but I wanted you to see it right away because I think that's a really cool feature of these tools. All right, so let's get back to some of the basics. So if you want to, I'm back. I'm going to start using the cloud instance again. I only had to use the local instance because the cloud instance cannot do debugging. It's just not part of the protocol. So, all right, so let's see. A few things you can do. You can, we have an ad hoc query window. And I have a really bad query here that I used for a different session on performance. I can execute it. Oh, looks like I deleted that table. Oh, it's because it's because the tables it relies on are here on the on-premise. So I guess I'm going to do that then. Query window. The tables that I needed are inside of here, so I'll just use my on-premise database instead. Execute it. You can see the results. And the interesting thing is we've actually built in tuning tools. So you can get an explain plan, and you can run Oracle's tuning advisor. So I'll just right click and say tune SQL. And it will give me a nice report telling me some findings, some suggestions for creating indexes or running Access Advisor, and finally, the explain plan. So for developers, this is nice. You can share it with your DBA and say, help. So this is the ad hoc query window. We also have the ability to run SQL scripts right here in the menu. So run SQL Plus script, you can just feed it any script, tell it what instance to run on, and it'll just run the script. And see what else we have here. So let me open up, or let me add a project to this. So I have a project here, a solution here. I'm going to add a project. And I'm going to use this type call from Oracle. This comes through our tools. This looks good. Okay. This is kind of neat, actually. So what I can do is I can suck in my schema by choosing import schema. And let's see, I want to use my, I'll just use my local instance. So it takes a minute here, I think. It's the HR schema, so it's kind of fast. But it's just basically creating all of the, or most of the schema objects for my HR schema. So you can take a look here now. It's used a standardized format of shredding the various schema objects into different SQL files. So I can open up the countries table, and you can see that it gives me the create table statement for that. And I can edit this and then right click and say run to change the to re-execute the re-execute the query. But what I really like about it is that you can check this into source control, and then you can share these schema objects with other developers. So I can come here and say, you know, check the whole project into source control. And it just, Visual Studio comes with its own Git repository. So now everything's in source control. And what I can do, like, let's suppose I decided to call this country name Yatra, just for lack of better thing. Save it. Now, what I can do is I can actually do a schema compare. So we have schema compare tools. And I can compare my local instance to what's in the source control. So this is project 1 being compared with my local instance. And you can see the schemas are different, and you can drill down and see that that it's the tables that are different, countries is different, and that country name is only in the source. And then if you look at the object definition, see if I can get rid of some, see. You can see that in one case it's country name, in the other case it's country name Yatra. So so this is a pretty cool thing you can do with scripts. So let's see, have I covered a lot of them? Let's see. That pretty much are the main ways that you interact with SQL scripts. So save schema objects to an individual SQL file. You can open up SQL files in our SQL script editor. You can edit SQL or PL SQL. You can edit PL SQL in the database. You can run SQL Plus scripts. So I think that basically covers it. So if you're interested in trying this out, again, it's free. You can get the extension from the right here from the marketplace, and give it a try yourself. And you know, and if you're using Windows, it's great. And if you're not using Windows, then you can use Visual Studio Code, and know that we're bringing a lot of these features across into Visual Studio Code. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Q&A, I believe. Let me go back to my slides here to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Let's see. Before we go to Q&A, I just wanted to show you some of the resources that are available to you. So we do have a .NET Developer Center that you can find by going to otnoracle.com/.net, DOTNET. We also have a GitHub resource, a Twitter account, YouTube channel, and you can always email me if you'd like. But the preferred method of interaction would probably be the forum, because that way other people can benefit from your question. So we do have a forum on OTN for both this tools, the Visual Studio tools, and also the Visual Studio Code tools. Okay, so with that, I'd like to move on to questions and answers. I don't see any here. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A question and answer. I just got a question to ask if you can get the slide deck, and absolutely you can. I have to find out from the staff here where I upload it, but I have it right here. We'll upload it shortly. Wherever they tell me to put it, I will put it there. And I think they must be making it available because I think they're asking people for the slides.
Yes.
They can comment.
Yes, absolutely. The slides would be available on the AIOUG portal after the conference completes.
Okay, thank you. Kartik asked me, how do you compare this with SQL Developer? I don't really think you can really compare it side by side exactly, because SQL Developer's been around for many years and probably has more features, and it's more aimed for DBAs right now anyway. I mean, in terms of compared to some of the features we have. But I will say that that if you're using Visual Studio Code, while we may not have every feature that's possible, it's very convenient to stay in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code when you need to do this kind of work. But both products are free, and Oracle is happy if you just use one or the other. We really, it doesn't matter to us as much. Please use whichever tools make you the most happy, and we'll be good with that. So, but as far as feature goes, I think SQL Developer probably has been around a lot longer and has more DBA-oriented features right now. I know we're trying to add as many features as we can. And then let's see, how good can this be used for DBAs who use SQL Developer mostly? I think with the next release I think you can use Visual Studio Code now, but with the next release, it'll be a lot better for DBAs, primarily because of the support for SQL+, because DBAs have a lot of SQL+ scripts that they rely on. And, and in the current release of Visual Studio Code, SQL+ scripts are not supported. The commands are not supported and things like that. So because there's specific SQL+ commands that are outside of SQL that could be in scripts, and we don't have those yet. But that in the 19.3.3 version of Visual Studio Code, that will be supported. Now, in terms of Visual Studio goes, we have SQL+ built in already, so it's faithful to the SQL+ syntax. So if you're using Visual Studio, which it doesn't sound like you are, but if you're using Visual Studio, it'll work just like SQL+. Are there beautify code options to capitalize indent, and can it be customized? No, we currently do not have that. However, there are some very popular, wildly popular PL/SQL extensions out there that you could use already, not written by Oracle, but by other developers. So you might want to try out, you might just want to try typing in PL/SQL into the marketplace search and take a look at some of these other extensions, because there's some very nice PL/SQL extensions that I've seen. In fact, that is one of the reasons why that particular feature probably didn't get done already, because we knew people could use other extensions to do it. So we're focusing on, we have a lot of features, that are more critical in terms of just getting basic functionality. So we did that first. But as time goes on, we really want to hear these features from you that are important to you. So if something isn't there that you really like, go on our OTN discussion forum for VS Code and comment on it and let us know that you're interested. Okay, so any other questions? Please go ahead and put them in there. And okay, let's see. Hello, Christian. You liked my session? Hi, VJ. Considering the fact that Visual Studio has good features in release and code deployment, is there a way to deploy code from one environment to another. Let me see what you mean by that. Release and code deployment, code from one environment to the other. I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to there, but I will say that that we do have a database project that can hold your scripts, and you can put SQL scripts in any of your projects, not just our own projects, and use that source control to move the files around. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. Maybe you can provide some more detail about your question. Let me see. And there's a lot of features here today that I didn't get to show you because I only had a very short time. I kind of focused on the ones that I thought would be the most interesting and most useful. But we do have some videos up on YouTube that you can watch. Some of them are a little bit old. I mean, you'll see an older version of Visual Studio maybe in the video, but the idea is the same. So if you want to get a little bit more of a deeper dive and see some of the other features in Visual Studio, just go to, or go on YouTube and search on Oracle and Visual Studio and you'll find it. You can watch some other videos, and over time we'll be doing other presentations. If you keep an eye on our Twitter account, we do a office hours once a month, where we do demos like this one and answer your questions. So you might want to check out our Twitter and follow us, and you can join us for these monthly office hour sessions and ask additional questions you may have. Why is debugging not available in the cloud? Oh, that's a nice question to see. So what's going on is that allowing the database to connect out to an arbitrary debugger is not secure. It's allowed in an on-premise situation because the user controls the network and the security, and so they can make that choice of whether they want to do debugging. But in the case of the cloud, it's a security consideration. So unfortunately, I think it hasn't had the priority for the cloud database yet. I think there's probably a project in the works to add that functionality, but I believe it just has to do with they're not going to be able to use just for anybody who's technically interested, there's a protocol for debugging that Oracle uses called JDWP. And that protocol requires that the database connect back to Visual Studio in this case, or SQL Developer, to basically talk back and forth on a TCP/IP connection to tell where's my breakpoint, what are these values. And in the cloud, unfortunately, we are not allowed to connect back out of the database to an arbitrary IP address. So that's why debugging is not currently available. So hopefully it will be, because just like you, I would really love to have that. But for on-premise, it's definitely available. And occasionally I do presentations on how to configure debugging. So it's a topic in and of itself, but I definitely wanted you guys to see that. I see we're coming up on a time limit.
Yes. I'll take over the screen if you're okay with it.
No, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, thank you, Christian, for your time. And this was a really insightful talk. It was good. It was fun to explore Visual Studio with you. So thank you for this. Next up, before we close, just a few quick announcements. This is something that we introduced this year as a way for us to reward and thank our participants for their time. It's called Learn and Win. It's a chance for everyone to win an AI OUG membership. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. A minute that you spend equals to a point, And ask, for example, after attending this session, you earn 60 points. Also, we've got bonus points that are based on your social media activities. Please check the delegates newsletter for the details. Because we've been getting a lot of queries, this is the navigation for how to check your points and the leaderboard. So you can go to the home page. On the home page, you'll see the OG Yatra points. And over there, you can see the leader dashboard. We do have an important announcement to make. That is the 11th of July special events. We're bringing to you 2 fireside chats, one with the Arstorm team and second with the Oracle HA team. You can see this list of speakers on our screen. We additionally also have another set of event, that is meet and greet Oracle Ace directors and Oracle Ground ambassadors. Now we have three separate time slots for this based on the speaker time zones. So the registrations for this is now open. Request you to kindly head over to the portal and register. Again, in case you run into any issues, please feel free to reach out to us for any assistance. Moving on. So this is the last thing where we want to request you for a speaker feedback, request you to kindly scan the QR code and provide us with the speaker feedback. So I'll just hold over here for a second if you want to scan or type the link. Again, as a reminder, the presentation material will be accessible through the AIOUG portal after OG Yatra completes. And with this, I would like to thank Christian again for his time. And we do have another session coming up shortly. So hopefully we see you then.
Thank you everybody and thank you very much to AIOUG for having me. This was wonderful. Bye everybody.
Bye.